Jesus freak here. Now, I know I wear my tradition on my sleeve, so to speak. But, I mean, tradition's comfortable, and tradition binds us with our predecessors. What tradition is not is theopneustos. It's not inspired. So if you're in any church that says tradition should be on par with Scripture, or even greater than Scripture, as like the Church of Rome, run, hide, save the women and children. Because, that's not the kind of church you want to be in. And I mean, the prayers that I've been using in my videos, I'm not the type of person to do extemporaneous prayer. They're from this. They're from the Episcopal 1979 prayer book. And it gives me two options. It gives me the option of prayers in modern language, or if I feel like using the 1662 language, I got that option too. So that's what I do, what I've been doing. I'll read one of the options from here, and then I go with the Revised Common Lectionary as a way to guide the choice of scripture readings I do. There's one reading that's usually Old Testament. I believe that sometimes between Easter and Pentecost that they use readings from Acts instead. This goes way back. And then there's a reading usually from Psalms. I think once or twice they have a couple from Luke instead. Traditionally, a lot of churches use these as responsive readings. But I read them straight up out of necessity. And then there's an epistle reading and a gospel reading. And the reason I do it is because it provides a lot of the foundational structure that, with no access to a church, we don't have right now. That, a sermon, and maybe a couple hymns give you a full service. Now, the RCL gives me some options. There's a couple optional readings that come from the Apocrypha. And that's because of the historical ties with the Church of Rome. The Episcopal churches sometimes uses it because of this historical, but they don't necessarily consider it inspired. But a complete Episcopal Bible is going to have the Apocrypha. I have a couple KJVs that have Apocrypha. But I'm not going to read from the Apocrypha. The other option is, during ordinary time, do you want to have readings that cover the Old Testament in a block, or do you want readings that go thematically with the New Testament readings? And I think I'm going to take the approach of going with the thematic readings, because it'll give me a way to tie everything together. So I have those options. Now I admit, I ain't the best reader. Those weird, awkward pauses when I'm reading, because of the way I read. I'm kind of like jit, 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 because I'm reading the phrase at a time, and I'm processing it, and I decide how to read it. Do I read it straight? Do I read it this way? Do I read it that way? The intonation I use. I try to read it with a natural intonation. And I know it sounds a little weird sometimes. Sometimes I'll use natural modern intonation on a passage that's heavy on the old language. Because obviously, I'm using RCL, I'm tying it with the King James. The site I use to get my readings from, they use the New Revised Standard. I don't like the New Revised Standard. But Bible readings aren't tied to a particular translation. And even my choice of translation is a matter of, the comfort of tradition. When I was a kid, you were only starting to see the newer translations really take off. For a lot of people, even then, it was still King James. I believe we use the Revised Standard. But there's still something to be said for the King James. I mean, it lasted as long as it did, as, unquestioned. And if we're all on the same page, we're all reading the same words, there won't be confusion. You know what they say about the author of confusion. Just, this is all a matter of, this is what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And yeah, I'm a little bit high church, but I hope you understand that high church doesn't mean Church of Rome type ecumenicism. Jesus freak out.